stand unshaken amidst life challenges. And so there are always going to be challenges in our life. We're born into this world in order to have challenges. And those challenges, it's just like tests in school. You know, as soon as you start in kindergarten, you're going to start having tests because preparing for those tests is the way that you learn. And so life too is the same way. What we experience as challenges are really just our karmic patterns and God's way of bringing us those particular things that we need in order to experience growth. And so one of the first things that we want not to do is that we don't want to try to push away these challenges. That doesn't mean that we have to go out and seek them. But when one comes, we have to learn to respond appropriately. And so there are always going to be these challenges coming on. And in fact, Master said something very interesting. He said that as humans, we move between oppressed, like our emotions and our karmic patterns and the way that we work moves between oppressed and a trough. And so we're constantly moving up or we're constantly moving down. And once we reach a trough, then we begin moving up again. And he said, so we're either experiencing pleasure or pain or positive or negative is probably a better way to say it. But the really interesting thing, he said that in between those two poles of seeing life as positive, seeing an experience as positive, or seeing it as negative, in between those two poles is boredom. And we ourselves will get very tired very quickly of being bored. You know it. I don't need to convince you that as soon as you're a little bit bored, you look for something to do, you flick around. If you've got the remote near you, you start channel surfing, you do something to overcome that boredom. And think of channel surfing, since I just mentioned it. As you go quickly through that, you're going to say, no, not this one, no, not this one, no, not this one. This one maybe. Oh, no, not this one, not this one. Oh, fine, I like this one. And so, whatever it is, and so life is constantly throwing it really according to our reaction to those things. Now, all of those television shows are really just neutral. Whether you're watching the airwaves, they're still being broadcast. There's somebody that's watching them. But for you in particular, those are your particular things that you need, and so you aren't relating to them. So there are millions and millions of challenges going on all the time that aren't relating. They aren't related to. Those challenges that you do relate to, what does it mean to relate to? You're reacting to it. You're reacting either I like this or I like that. Gee, it's nice this morning. I think I might go try to take a nice walk. It's a nice, clear day, but not too hot. It's just right. I'll go, oh no, I just saw it's supposed to rain this afternoon. So constantly these reactions. So the main thing is that what we have to do in order to meet our test is we have to work on ourselves. This is the problem that most people have most of the time, is that they think that they're going to be successful by changing the test, not by changing themselves. So it would be, again, if we were students in 5th grade and we had to have a math test, that we thought that we would be successful by getting into the classroom before that was passed out and crossing out all the questions that we didn't know the answer to. Well, the teacher comes in and says, no, I'm not going to let you get by with that one. And so, the teacher is our own karma. The teacher is God. And so, I mean, here I'm putting it in a little bit abusive way, but how many of us try to push away the tests that are coming to us, or blame them on somebody else, or avoid them in some way. And if we do that, we do two things. One, we don't pass the test, but even worse, we set up within ourselves an avoidance pattern. And so we reincarnate the next time needing to pass tests, but our strategy in how to deal with tests is to avoid. And so you find a lot of people who are fearful, a lot of people who are anxious, a lot of people who are closed in on themselves, because they have set up a pattern where they have not accepted whatever tests, whatever challenges come to them, and they've set up a pattern of avoidance or of blaming other people and trying to change other people. It would be similar in this analogy to not knowing the answer on the mathematics test in 5th grade and screaming at the teacher that she's mean and nasty and she has to change how she deals with you because she doesn't understand you, and so on. So all of those things are incorrect and unsuccessful ways of working with life's challenges. So what are successful ways of doing it? Because obviously that's where we want to get to. First of all is to learn how to control our negative responses, especially our negative responses, but learn how to control the reactive process. And you can't do this just mentally, because the emotions are involved, and Master tells us that feelings precede the rational part of the mind. And so we have a feeling about something, and then the mind kicks in and rationalizes why that feeling is correct that we have. So if we like something, we'll say, well, gee, ice cream is good for you on a cool day because it cools you down, and really sugar isn't so bad for you, and whatever. The mind rationalizes. If we don't like something, echinacea, when you're sick, you can find rationales for not liking it. So the mind will follow and create the rationale for what you like or don't like. And so what we really have to work on is controlling that reactive process that goes immediately to liking and disliking, to plus, minus, and that is the challenge of incarnation. In fact, the great statement of Patanjali is that as soon as we neutralize that tendency to allow those vortexes of positive and negative, as soon as we can neutralize that, as soon as we can control it, we will go into samadhi and we will find God. We'll find our own true self, is a better way of saying it. And so, this tendency of ours to work outwardly in the world, thinking that we can change it, is not right. Working inwardly is what we have to do. So how do we change our reactive processes? First of all of the techniques of yoga, whether you have Kriya or not, but Kriya especially, but all of the techniques of yoga, both physical and spiritual, the meditation part and Hatha Yoga, work on this question. The Hatha Yoga, when done correctly, will help to move the energy in certain patterns that it will allow a clear and strong flow of that. using mental willpower, the combination of willpower and mental clarity, Master, one of his key teachings was that mind is stronger than body. Now, and this was nearly 100 years ago when we began talking about this, now all doctors know about the mind-body connection, and they work with it. But Master was saying at that time that mind is more powerful than body, and that if the mind is strong, if the will is strong enough, that we can control the physical reactions. Here I'm talking about controlling the reactive process. So if the mind is strong enough, if our willpower of non-attachment, of wanting to be positive, of wanting to overcome something, and it isn't just mentally, it's the commitment to overcoming, to channeling our energy to overcoming something. If that all is strong enough, then that will be the controlling factor, and that will bring the reactive process under control. That's why when Swami redid the yoga postures for Ananda Yoga, he combined mental attitude with the physical positions. And because people don't really yet understand the deep principle of what's there, they kind of say, oh, that seems kind of silly. I want to do fast yoga. I want to do sweaty yoga. I want to do, and it turns something that should be solely related into exercise. Swami moved the other direction and took what is now considered more exercise and moved it along with mental affirmation and using the mind in combination with body position to form a unity that will change our consciousness. Now, I'm not talking about these things just theoretically. Meditation, yoga postures done correctly, but especially meditation, will actually begin to control and change the way our brain functions. And so when I talk about controlling the reactive process, if you take a typical person and you hide behind a door, and that person comes into a room and you leap out and say, boo! There's this huge startle response. Then they freak out, they throw their coffee up in the air or whatever might happen. And then it might take them a long maybe a half hour before they are able to re-establish their equanimity. That's partly because of brain function. That the areas in the brain that deal with primitive emotions like fight and flight are highly reactive, and the areas in the brain, prefrontal lobes, that deal with discrimination and with higher values are less active. In meditators, meditating at this area, the prefrontal lobes, that's why we look at the spiritual eye. It's actually the other way around. We meditate at the spiritual eye because it lifts up consciousness. The lifting of the consciousness changes the brain structures and brain functions. But nonetheless, meditating here begins over a very quick period of time. I'm talking a couple of weeks or less, to begin to change in ways that scientists can actually see on MRIs. Begins to change brain structures so that now you take a yogi and you try that startled response by saying boo, and probably the response you get is to kind of turn around with a slight bemused smile and say, you thought you could scare me? Are you kidding? Or if they do get a different style, then they will quickly come back to equanimity. Now, expanding that into life's challenges by meditating, by doing yoga postures, and by leading a spiritual life where we become less attached to what happens to the body, less attached to our likes and dislikes, to change the brain, all of those things will allow us to take those challenges that come to us, instead of trying to push them away, say, thank you. This is a really interesting one. I'm dealing here with a potentially fatal disease. Wow, I'd better really get my energy in alignment here, because this is a difficult challenge. Instead of going through denial, going through hopelessness, all of that, we take on life's challenges in a positive way, with faith, with energy, and with the control of the reactive process. All of that allows the mind to stay in a high state of consciousness, which will completely change our lives. Now, Devi's wanting to say some words too.
Thank you, Jyotish. That was, I think, extremely clear and helpful. You know, I think it's important now to take what Jyotish has been talking about and look at what we find in the world around us, because we are living in extraordinary times. Obviously, historically, there have been great wars that have swept through this planet. I don't need to recount them, we're all aware of them. In the 20th century, many, many wars. But we're living in a different kind of time now, where we don't see huge amassings of armies going to fight battles all over the world. But it's a different kind of battle that we're fighting right now. But make no mistake, it is a battle. And we have all, and I think it's important for us to be cognizant of the fact that we have all have chosen to be alive at this time, to take birth at this time, and for a reason. And, you know, Jyotish and I travel all over the world, and we meet devotees of Master all over. And I'm very aware, as I meet sincere devotees of Master, that to be drawn to such a great avatar in this lifetime, that we have been on the spiritual path for many lifetimes. This is not the first lifetime we have walked the path. And there is a wonderful quote from Mahatma Gandhi in which he says, "We must be the change we want to see in the world." So putting all these thoughts together that I've been sharing, we live in a time of moral and dharmic confusion, right? One might even say of loss, where dharma is very obscure: righteousness, right action, truth, Sanatana Dharma, all the good things that we learn about in all religions, truth and kindness and compassion and self-sacrifice. All of these things are on a very thin ice right now. But those of us who have chosen to walk the spiritual path right now, I sincerely believe we have chosen it for a purpose, because we bring with us into this lifetime other lifetimes, I would say many lifetimes, of seeking God. And in this lifetime, here we are, with these incredible tools that Yoganandaji has given us, and his great disciple, Swami Kriyanandaji. And they have given us the tools: meditation, Kriya Yoga, right attitude, how to live dharmically in daily life. And it is up to us now. We can't expect politicians or financial advisors or movie stars. We can't expect them to reestablish dharma. It is up to us within our own self now to say truth and kindness and wisdom and compassion and self-sacrifice starts here. And how do we do this? How? Jyotish has been mentioning some ways. I'll share some others. simply put, one could define the spiritual path as living in a state of focused awareness of truth and using the vigilance and self-discipline never to veer off of the highest truth that we can perceive. And so we perceive this in meditation, as Jyotish has been saying. It changes our consciousness. We perceive peace. We perceive joy. We perceive love and expansion and light and all the qualities of God. And then we need to be vigilantly aware, and whatever we do, that is almost like, one might say, a spiritual savings account that we keep in our heart. And we don't want that to diminish. We don't want to do anything that diminishes that sense of peace, of kindness, of divine love and friendship, compassion, anything that diminishes that. And so we need to be vigilantly aware. If watching a lot of news, and this person said that, and that person said this, yes, of course we want to be aware of what's going on in the world. But I know for my own self, there comes a point where I'm not getting anything substantive, but it's just more tuning into the rajasic, restless, positive and negative. He said this, she said that, pulls up, pulls down. This person kills that person, and in retaliation that group kills that group. It's never ending. This is the play of Maya. And so if we want to be the change that we want to see in the world, we have to pull back. We have to carry that light within us as the most sacred aspect of who we are. And we have to watch our behavior patterns, watch what you're taking in, news, movies, music, conversations, all of that, and be vigilantly aware. Is this diminishing my sense of peace, my sense of divine awareness? And if it is, then you need to adjust and adapt and make the changes that protect that light within you. Because if you don't have it strong, how can we possibly be able to shiver against the forces that are outside of us? Terrorism and I don't know what word to use, but just a kind of political approach that defies imagination in its closed, negative consciousness. And so we need to carry that light within us and protect it. Protect it from what we're taking in. In our meditation and in our prayers, we need to ask God, use me as a channel of thy light. In whatever way I can do it. If I'm standing in a grocery line and there's someone in front of me arguing, a mother with a child or husband and wife, whatever it is, consciously be spreading light out. Consciously be surrounding the world around you with light. And then in meditation and prayer, as I say, be aware of sending out that light. And so we need to understand, to stand unshaken in the midst of life's challenge. The best attitude to pick this up with is not for me, but for others. I will live my life with as much spiritual awareness as I can. And that doesn't mean, spiritual awareness doesn't mean being goody-goody or, any of the kind of cliches that come with religion. Spiritual awareness means being aware that God's presence is within you, drawing that presence within you to the best of your ability, and then sharing whatever quality is needed at the time. If it's calmness, if it's joy, if it's peace, if it's healing. And then to listen. Listen very carefully. This is such an important part of the spiritual life. Master called his beautiful book of prayer poems Whispers from Eternity. And that's why, so we can be listening all the time for God's guidance. And if there's constant chatter going on, restlessness, arguing, criticizing others, how can we possibly hear the whispers from eternity that Master is trying to share with us all the time? So not thinking, oh, how can I have a better life, even though the world around me sometimes seems lost in rabbits, but accept the fact that we live in a time of spiritual and moral transition. And we have chosen to be born at this time by our own conscious will. We have chosen this time because we have come with a certain amount of spiritual training behind us. In this life, we have found our way to Yoganandaji's feet and to his blessings. And if we can share that mission in whatever way we can, listen to how he wants to use us. It doesn't have to be in great and public ways. It can be simply having goodwill towards people that wish you ill. It can be having compassion for those who are lost in delusion. As Master said, you don't drive out darkness with a stick. So we're not going to change the world by being mad at one political candidate and picketing against him. We will change it by turning on the light. That's what, and the turning on the light of God within us. But not just for ourselves. We did not take this incarnation merely for self-improvement. We took this incarnation, I believe, to find God, and part of that process is through deep, regular meditation, attunement with our Guru, but also to be a vehicle for light into this world, this time. This is the purpose of our lives. And whether we are consciously aware of it or not, it's important to think about, to tune in. Why am I doing that? What is the purpose of my life? How can I make a change in this? And then our little boat, I don't know if you can see very clearly, but there's a painting on the wall behind us that Jyotish did. And it's a stormy sea, a dark, stormy sea. But there's Master holding up a light and on a little boat across the ocean of delusion. Jyotish painted this painting for an art fair we were having here in Ananda village. But when we hung it up on the wall, we thought, no, we don't want to sell this painting. We want to have this as a constant reminder that no matter how stormy the seas may be, that the light of God always shines through the darkness. And the Guru is always trying to steer us. So don't let the world around you discourage you. You chose to be born now for a reason. You chose to be born now because you can be a vehicle to bring God's light into the world. And the more we do that, the more everything in your personal life becomes easy. I know for Jyotish and me, we've dedicated our lives to serving God. And we've put that as the number one priority, no matter what else happens. And I see now, after many years, nearly 50 years, that our own lives are relatively simple and without problems. The bigger picture of Ananda is complex, and the bigger picture of the world is in turmoil. But because we have chosen to be servants of God and to help others in whatever way we can, our own life is, God takes care of it. So don't worry so much about yourself. Think more about why you're here, what you can do to be the change you want to see in the world. And Master said in his autobiography, I see my Kriya Bhavas, my Kriya Yogis, as little points of light scattered throughout the world. He came to plant the seeds in our heart so that we could transmit them throughout the world. And Master predicted that there would be a time where there was great upheaval in the world. I believe we're living in it now. But he said this period will end, and there will come a time where mankind is so sick of warfare and hostility and anger and violence that a great golden age comes, of great peace and world harmony. And I think if we can do our part to help usher in that golden age. So now we want to open up the floor to all of you to see if you have questions that you'd like us to address. And just to conclude, I want to say how happy we are that Narayan and Devi invited us to give the satsang. We hope that we can continue to do it in the future from wherever we are, India, Italy, America. It's very nice to see all of you. And so if you all have any questions, I don't know, Narayan, how you're going to organize it. If you're going to take a mic or
I'll repeat the questions to you, so if people have a question, they can stand up and share it, and then I can relay it so that Jyotish can hear it. There was a woman recently in one of our meditation classes, and she was just wondering how that she could be a positive change. The world seems like there's so much negativity surrounding us. So for people that are feeling stuck, what would you guys suggest as, I know you've already talked on this, it's maybe one or two first things to do for people that just feel like utter hopelessness and they can't see any positivity or any way to be a check. How do they get the dynamo of their will and their devotion and thoughts in the regard?
Okay, well, I'll talk about it, and I want to do it in reference to, as Devi said, we're facing a couple of major things right now that have the world in great turmoil. One is kind of global terrorism and all of the effects of that. And the second is the dysfunctional manner in which the current election is going on in America. I'm not talking only about the politicians, I'm talking about the whole way that election is happening. But let me come back to the question, how can we be effective? The first is that you can affect that which you actually touch. And so to think that you're going to affect Mideastern politics by shaking your fist at ISIS or screaming and shouting about how they should do this and they should do that doesn't mean anything. So what can you do about that global terrorism? Well, there are many things that you can do. One, and we're going to end this satsang with it, you can actually pray for them. Because while you can't touch it with your fingers or your hands or your voice, you can touch it with your thoughts. Now, if you're praying for something, you want to send out positive energy for it. And that's why we are going to end this today's session with the Peace and Harmony prayer. You probably know that there's an app that you can get on your smartphone. Just go to whatever app store you go to. I'll talk about iPhone because that's what I know. So you go to the Apple store and type in Ananda Church, Peace and Harmony, and that app will come up. We now have we started it 2 or 3 months ago, and there are over 550,000, over 500,000 prayers, because there's a countdown there. Prayers of peace and harmony that have been spread out from Ananda groups. So pray for the world. Send positive energy out. Don't send hateful. Don't send negative. Don't send destructive energy, because that's all sending off darkness. As Devi said, you cannot drive darkness out with a stick. Send out light, send out love, send out kindness. So that's working at a distance. If God brings into your particular orbit anybody that you can talk with, connect with, in order to express your kindness and your love, or there may be particular kinds of ways. Next year we're going to have a kind of spiritual fair there in LA, and Narayana can tell you more about it, Devi, but by having a spiritual fair and you come into actual contact with people, it's all about consciousness. It's all about lifting consciousness, lifting it up into the light. And so you can do it at a distance by prayer, you can do it, but most importantly is lifting your own consciousness. Because if you don't do that, all you're going to do is be an agent for the darkness. Because you're going to be in a reactive mode. And if you don't lift your own consciousness about it, then you won't be able to work effectively. So then working locally, working with those people that you meet, if you want peace in the Middle East, make sure there's peace in your home. If you want different countries to stop fighting each other, make sure that in your place of business, different departments don't fight each other. But peace has to start inwardly. Peace is a vibration, it's a consciousness. It isn't some distant conflict. And so, if you want to be an agent of peace, practice peace in your daily life as you find it. And that will send out vibrations of peace into the world, and it will also allow you as an individual to be a positive force and to have a way that you can help others, as opposed to being a negative force and railing in such a way that you aren't really effective.
Yeah, that's a very good response, and I'll just add to that. Another current, challenging current that we see in the world is just hopelessness, despair, negativity, depression, all of these things. And in talking with a number of people, I know people who are generally, people I know who are generally very optimistic and positive, have shared with me that they're really struggling to keep their positive outlook. And I think this is a really good thing to be aware of in yourself. Just as we were saying earlier, the spiritual path is about attentive awareness. So there are currents now that are going out across the world. Remember, Master said thoughts are not individually, but universally rooted. So there are universal thought forms right now: negativity, despair, hopelessness, all of these things. And every sensitive person feels these things. I can see it in people with whom I have contact all over the world. And so we need to, in our attentive awareness, watch our own thought forms. If we wake up first thing in the morning and it's like, oh darn, I wonder what the news is going to be today. I'm sure it's not going to be good. And my boss is going to be just as mean today as he was yesterday. On and on like that. If we can, that's why Master gave us the science of affirmations, and it's so important now. Yes, we can meditate, that will lift our consciousness, but moment by moment throughout the day, with this attentive awareness, when you feel depression, hopelessness, despair, all of these things, counter it with your willpower, and use one of Master or Swamiji's affirmations that really helps you. I do this all the time. I change from time to time the one I'm working with. But it just, when I can feel a negative current coming, I just plug in a tape mentally of master, our Swami, their words, their thoughts, and just keep repeating it and repeating it until I counter that downward pulling current of negativity. You know, many years ago, when we were starting to work in Assisi, Swami asked, Italy, Ananda's work there, Swami asked Jyotish and me and a small group of people to go over there. And it was before we were in Assisi. We were in a center in northern Italy near Lake Como. And it was a very challenging time. We didn't speak the language, we didn't speak Italian, we had very little money, it was just a small group of us. It was physically very challenging, it was extremely cold, we were living in a house that wasn't adequately heated. So there were a lot of things to kind of rob us of our positive enthusiasm. And I went through a period where I would wake up every morning and I could feel I was down. I could feel I didn't have enthusiasm. But then I would always hold on to the thought, well, I've been worse before. It's been worse before. I'll keep it. And then I finally woke up one morning and this feeling of real overwhelming depression kind of came over me. And I just thought, I still had a sense of humor, and I thought, I think we're breaking new territory here. I don't think I've ever been this depressed. And I knew I had to fight that, because I knew that current of negativity was getting stronger than I was. And so I had a card that someone had sent me with beautiful gold embossed letters that said joy. And I just cut that out, and I put it on the window of our room that I could see every day. And I started, and this is a true story of how a devotee fights darkness. And every moment I was fighting consciously as though I was being attacked by an enemy. I'm just affirming joy, affirming enthusiasm, affirming positive thoughts. And little by little, it started to shift. And little by little, the positive thought forms were stronger within me, until finally I reached a state where really for several weeks I was in a state of joy I had never experienced. So why do we have the challenges in life? Just as Jyotish was saying, it's not because our 5th grade math teacher didn't like us, that he or she gave us those hard problems. We have problems in life so that we learn how to use the tools to fight back, to overcome whatever tests we've been given. And we can do this. And we can help each other do this. And that's why satsang is so important. To come together to do affirmations, to come together to pray for others, to pray for the world. We are soldiers of light, and we need to mobilize our troops now, both within ourselves and within our circle of workers.
We aren't really able to hear, so you either have to come close to the mic or try and really.
I'll relate. So can you elaborate on the battle of light and darkness? So could you guys elaborate on the great tribulation that you had mentioned that we're facing right now, and where we're going to end up, and maybe some more context?
Well, Master predicted, and Swami often talked about, world tests and trials coming. And he didn't specifically say what they would be, but I think if we look at the world, even in my lifetime, the shift that has come in loss of values, loss of faith, loss of dharma, truth, and the disintegration of a sense of security and that righteousness exists around us. You know, we see this every day in the news. The Democratic headquarters was hacked, maybe by Russia. This very wonderful priest in Normandy was murdered. You know, on and on and on. So we see around us. It doesn't necessarily have to be nuclear bombs being dropped, but it doesn't take much imagination to see that righteousness is struggling there. And Master predicted this, and Swami, one of the reasons Master talked about World Brotherhood communities and that Swamiji has started them was to create a model of living that was based on cooperation, not competition, simplicity, not complexity, spiritual thinking, not just materialism. So whether you can be part of an actual rural community or urban community, you have a community of like-minded people. We're there in Los Angeles. And to develop these qualities, because these are the antidote for the illnesses in the world today. So again, Master's prophecies are not gloom and doom. They're not to say, oh, the world's coming to an end. But I saw a little clip from the speech that President Obama gave at the Democratic Convention. And just in a few words, he mentioned the other candidate's name, and people started booing. And he simply said, don't boo, vote. And that's, again, that's such a spiritual teaching. Don't just respond with negative energy, fear, hatred, but find something you can do about it. And Master did say, ultimately, that after a period of unrest and turbulence and hostility globally, and it's what we're seeing through world terrorism, he said after such a period, there would rise up the desire for peace and harmony among the majority of the people on this planet, who are good-willed people. You know, sometimes when I despair about where humanity is going towards, I just remember God is in everyone. Every single person that's breathing air on this earth now, God dwells within. And at some point, we will all awaken to that God presence within us. And we can help lead the way by all the things we've been talking about.
I'll address it a little bit also. There are two ways to look at the potential for a massive breakdown in society, you know, warfare. There are books now that talk about some little foreign power doing a nuclear bomb that is meant to destroy all electrical devices in the country. So just you can think about a disaster scenario where the world is in a very, very different point from when it is now. Now, one way to think about those is thinking about all the negatives and what your response to the negatives will be. But let me throw this challenge to you, since we're talking about you being unshaken amidst life's challenges. Let's say that within 5 years there's going to be a world war, and there are going to be nuclear strikes, there are going to be all of that. Don't think about the physical aspect of it. Think about what you want to do to prepare your consciousness for challenges. I don't know whether those things are going to happen in the lifetime of any of us. You know, Master talked outside of time. I read a talk of his about how such a disaster was coming, and he was talking to a particular audience. You don't know the economic disaster. People will be losing their jobs. They won't be able to feed their families. It will be worse than the Depression of the 1930s. You don't know what a disaster is coming. Prepare yourself. Whatever that audience that he was talking to, in, let's say it was 1950, that never happened to a single person in that audience. Does that mean Master didn't know what he was talking about? No, if the people there had prepared their consciousness as if difficulty was going to happen, as if depression, what is the cause of depression? Greed. So the countering factor, overcoming depression, financial depression, is to overcome greed. Well, we see the growing trend of greed in our society today. One of the ways we see it is by the increasingly small percentage of people who own an increasingly large percentage of the assets. All of that, those people don't need that money. They don't need those assets. But they should be sharing that with other people. It's unless they're doing that, excessive wealth actually hurts a person's consciousness. So think about disaster, not about disaster. Think about it as an opportunity to change your consciousness. Then, whether that disaster comes or not, you can still change your consciousness. And that's the way to prepare, because all the rest is immaterial in any case.
You know, and maybe we'll close with this thought because we want to have time for some meditation and then doing our prayer for world peace. Today, July 31st, in 1949, so that's 67 years ago, was the day that Master gave his remarkable talk in Beverly Hills, not far from where you all are, and that Swamiji was present. And it was sort of the launching of the community's movement. And he said, "Today marks the birth of a new era. Youths go north, south, east, and west, establishing everywhere world brotherhood colonies." And he said, "My words are registered in the ether, and they shall move the west." His words are registered in the ether, and they will move the west. I find great hope in that. And the power of these great masters does not diminish over time. There's nothing to be afraid of. We need to do our part, no doubt, and do it well. But ultimately, this is God's world. He's got it all worked out. And let's use the time given to us to grow spiritually and to help bring about a time of greater peace in this world. So maybe we'll close the questions. And Narayan, you had wanted to have a little meditation?
Yeah, that would be wonderful.
Okay, so let's meditate just for about, let's see, about 5-8 minutes, and then we'll close with our prayer for world peace and harmony. So,
okay, let's close our eyes. Get centered. Feel for a moment the energy in your heart chakra. Maybe sitting quietly, you can actually feel the physical heart beating. If not, feel like there's a sphere of light inside you, in the area of the heart, in the spine. It's the Ananda chakra. Try to feel that energy. Now, look into the forehead and see whatever light you see there. Let the energy from the heart flow up and join with the light at the spiritual eye. the spiritual eye, feel that you're expanding and expanding. Master said to feel the body as space. So feel that your body is immaterial. That it's really made of light. And that light is floating in the ocean of light. And that ocean of light drives out all darkness all around this planet, within yourself, everywhere. Now just look into that light and feel the connection between the uplifted energy of the heart and that light. And just draw that into yourself for a few minutes.
Continuing to meditate, feel the light on your heart, shining in your forehead, light of God. Feel it surrounding your whole being, body, mind, and spirit. Light. You are floating in a beautiful bubble of light. And just as soap bubbles floating on the breeze, and they meet, their surfaces merge. So feel all of us sitting together now. Feel the light of our particular being merging with the light of all in the room. Feel a large bubble of light, beautiful iridescent blue light, filled with the sincere spiritual wishes of all of us, goodwill for everyone, peace and harmony on earth. Feel that bubble of light growing ever larger. Feel that throughout the city of Los Angeles, the city of angels, feel that light, the bubble of light, expanding. And people throughout the city, for just this moment, though they don't know why, feel hope in their hearts, feel forgiveness and acceptance and understanding. And feel our light, God's light within us, spreading out further and further throughout America, across the oceans, to our brothers and sisters everywhere, circling this beautiful blue planet with the light of God. And let's do our prayer together in unison. We'll do it 10 times, repeating, Lord, fill this world with peace and harmony. Followed by 3 times, repeating in unison, Lord, fill me with peace and harmony. So feeling the world surrounded in the consciousness, divine love, which radiates from this light. Let's pray in unison. Lord, fill this world with peace and harmony, peace and harmony. Lord, fill this world with peace and harmony, peace and harmony. Lord, fill this world with peace and harmony, peace and harmony. Lord, fill this world with peace and harmony, peace and harmony. Lord, fill this world with peace and harmony, peace and harmony. Lord, fill this world with peace and harmony, peace and harmony. Lord, fill this world with peace and harmony. Peace and harmony. Lord, fill this world with peace and harmony. Peace and harmony. Lord, fill this world with peace and harmony. Peace and harmony. And now, together, Lord, fill me with peace and harmony. Peace and harmony. Lord, fill me with peace and harmony. Peace and harmony. Lord, fill me with peace and harmony. Peace and harmony. Now let's rub our hands together, feeling the energy generated by this action, and let's raise our hands and chant Om, sending the blessings out to the world. Om.